Hello, welcome to the Debtors System, Vital for Effective Fiscal Management information webinar being presented by ESS BIZTOOLS. I'm Peter Towers, the founder and managing director of ESS BIZTOOLS. I hope you're having a wonderful day. What we're going to talk about in this webinar is all things relative to fiscal management, because this is a huge issue for your SME clients. People don't understand fiscal management. Is that your concern or your client's concern? Well, I think if you want to really offer advisory services and get more involved with your clients because of the reduction in amount of taxation work that's going to be required in the future, according to the recently retired tax commissioner, one of the key areas that most SMEs possess is debtors. So the debtors management system is very important. And part of this process is to understand cash flow and what it means in the business. And using the cash flow forecast has been able to forecast the future. And it's the management of skills knowledge. But part of that knowledge is knowing the key business metrics within a business. And I think one of the most important metrics is debtors days outstanding. Now, it would be lovely if everyone could achieve a 30 days debtors days outstanding year in, year out. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen that way. And we have major fluctuations. And this causes a lot of problems to our SME clients. The CEO of MYOB wrote a very interesting article in the Financial Review, which was published in February of this year, where MYOB interviewed a range of SMEs who'd started businesses at least 6 months after they'd started, and then published in his article what they found out. And that, as it relates to debtors, covered the following matters. There was very little fiscal management knowledge. And in the article, Paul Robson referred to problems with suppliers because people didn't understand that suppliers would not automatically grant them a 30-day payment. They might have wanted cash up front or on delivery, or 7 days. Getting back to debtors, there was a misunderstanding of suppliers' terms of trade and a lack of knowledge of debtors' systems, processes, how you set up a debtors system, how you monitor it, how you control it to make sure it's not getting out of control. There needs to be an appreciation that every debtor is not going to pay on a 30-day basis. It'd be lovely if they would, but they don't. A lot of them take longer. In fact, in 2016, Australia received a very dubious award. We were awarded the longest debtors days outstanding in the world, and that was 56.4 days. It was the average in Australia. If that's the average, there's a lot of people a lot higher. I've come across businesses with debtors days outstanding of 102 days and even higher. And there's plenty around 80 to 90 days, isn't there? And very limited systems had been introduced for the control of debtors. And that's why people get into trouble. And that's why bad debt increases. And people need to be aware of that to see whether changes can be implemented. So what's the accountant's role in all this? I think it should be trying to ensure that an adequate debtors system has been introduced for your clients, for the control of debtors. Unfortunately, a lot of people in our profession have backed away from being involved in any sort of business metrics or key performance indicator calculations for their clients. I rang an accountant once who I knew because one of his clients, office managers, had been at a seminar that I was presenting on corporate governance. And during the corporate governance, we discussed directors' roles in monitoring debtors within the business. And this lady asked me, what should debtors' days outstanding be? And I said, well, in a perfect world, it'd be 30 days. But unfortunately, that's very rare. What's the debtors' days outstanding in your business? And she said, I don't know. I don't know how to calculate it. I said, hasn't your accountant shown you that? She said, our accountant only talks to us about annual accounts and taxation returns. Doesn't talk to us about anything else. I said, oh, okay. So what's your sales? What's your current debtors balance? And how about we have a cup of tea now? It's about time for the cup of tea. And I could see the caterers had morning tea ready to be served at the back. And I'll have a discussion with you over morning tea, because I thought this might get a bit embarrassing for this lady, or at least for the firm she worked for. As I turned out it was a father's firm, I found out. And we had a discussion and we did the calculations, and the debtors' days outstanding were 102 days. I said, do you ever really follow up debtors, or when we're running short of money? I said, is that fairly often? Or Dad's complaining he's always having to put money back into the business. And I thought, no wonder, 102 days. I said, you sure your accountants never raised this? No. A few weeks later, I had reason to ring that accountant. And I rang him and he said, oh, you were talking to so-and-so. I said, yeah. And I said, she had no idea what the debtors' days outstanding were. And he said, oh, neither do I. I said, why don't you calculate it? And he said, oh, no one's ever asked me to. I said to myself, it's because it's not in the tax requirements. No one needs to know it for taxation purposes, but you need it for the business's survival, I think. So one of the appeals I would make to you is, as you're thinking about embracing a broader range of accountancy services, I presume that's why you're participating in this webinar, please think through the information that your client really needs. And debtors' days outstanding is one of them, because that business should have known that instead of 102 days, first of all, they didn't know they were on 102 days. Their aim should be to get back to 70 and then 60 and hopefully 50 days so that they can be really monitoring it. Now, in fact, I took on that appointment with them and we helped them when we got it back to 65 days, which made that lady's father very happy because he had a lot more money back into his business. What you need to do then is to negotiate an understanding with your client as to who's going to be responsible for monitoring debtors. It's part of this process. In Mr. Robson's report, he talked about fiscal management and seemed to be indicating that he thought the client had to undertake all the fiscal management. I don't think that's practical in small businesses. And in fact, it really doesn't happen that way in the big end of town. I was the chief financial officer and company secretary of a listed public company. I was one of 10 in the leadership team. So we had experts in marketing and sales and production. And we were in the meat industry, so we had a very important person was our chief livestock buyer, who was also a director of the public company. And each had their own responsibilities. So the CEO wasn't there worrying all about fiscal management. He knew I was there, and that was my role, to keep him informed if there was a problem, but not for his day-to-day concern. But compare that to your SME clients. They've probably only got one or two direct leadership team persons with them. And fiscal management is their problem. But I think in this new age of services that accountants can provide to your clients, you can ease some of that responsibility and also make sure it's done properly by saying to your client, the or here, you will in fact supply those services. You will act as that chief financial officer and really monitor the debtors system. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to do all the work. That's part of the deal. You would then sit down and work out what part of this process should be done by the team within the client's office and what part of the process is going to be done by your team. But you need to document it and you need to make sure it is understood and the client knows what's happening. When we start looking at implementing a debtors management system, I think first of all, we need to understand who's doing what in the current system. So that's the SME needs analysis, which is a questionnaire that you will get access to if you subscribe to this package on the promotion we have at present. And you would work through, and that would give you some questions to ask the leadership team as to their role in debtors management. So you'd start off with a systems review where you're going to use the debtors review questionnaire to gain an understanding of the persons directly responsible for debtors management within their system. Then you need to go through and understand what's happening at present. So we have a form which assists in the evaluation of the debtors systems, forms and documents that have been used. The debtors personal guarantee and indemnity forms, are they being obtained? Are they being appropriately filed? Are they going to be available if they're required at some future date? That might be 6 or 7 years away. Hopefully they're never required, but they need to be able to be produced if and when they are required. The debtor statement policy, is your client still issuing debtor statements? Do they want to continue to do that? But have they clearly identified in their engagement letters with their customers what the system on debtors is? I think they should be indicating that they're going to put the due date for payment on all tax invoices. And that is the date that the payment of those invoices needs to be made. Who's responsible for debtors monitoring? So overall on debtors management, is there a system? So we go through then and look at the evaluation, the system introduction checklist. Are they using online debt management systems? That can be very advantageous to your clients, but some will still want to record it the traditional way. Is there an application to open an account? Does someone check that application? Is there a phone call made to follow up on any referees that have been submitted? Make sure that this client is a good business risk. Or is your client just picking up someone else's problem? The customer application due diligence checklist is a way of working your way through to making sure everything has happened. Approving a prospective customer. Who does that? Are details of the new customer communicated to the sales team so that they know what the requirements are? Is there a welcome to new customer letter which spells out the trading terms, the credit limit, contains the forms required for the personal property securities registration, if that's deemed to be necessary for this customer. And the customer's purchase procedures. This is where the customer says, well, I require certain forms to accompany each tax invoice. And if I don't get them, I won't be making payment. Now, it could be a weighbridge certificate or a health certificate or some other sort of documentation that they require. And if they don't receive that documentation, they won't make the payment. And in some cases, this can hold up a payment for well over 30 days. So instead of getting paid on a 30-day basis, we're blown out immediately to 60-day basis. And that can be because the SME hasn't processed the data correctly. And then we get to debtors monitoring, debt recovery letters, if your client's following up the debtors themselves and not passing it on to a third party. The debtors days outstanding calculation form. the debtors reduction checklist that they could use, protection against the liquidator's preferential payment claims. The clients need an awareness of. So there's a whole range of activities occurring when we look at a debtors system. Now, the documentation that I'm going to show you some of shortly is all part of the debtors management system. We've gone through and looked at this and done actual assignments using this material. And I believe that you could generate income of $1,000 to $1,500 per client for undertaking the assignment, of reviewing their current system, going through and then making recommendations as to the changes in the system, then implementing those changes, training the client staff on the duties that have been allocated for them to perform, and then just checking that it's all going to work right. So you can get underway virtually straight away to earn some fees. Now, in our special promotion, which we have at present, which is part of our BizAid, of course, we're concerned about the status of small business in Australia. We've got high interest rates, high inflation, significantly higher business failures than what we normally have, and a federal government that doesn't seem very SME friendly to me and a lot of other people. A lot of SMEs are very worried. So we've taken the debtors management component out of our advisory intro package, our product package, and we've got it now as a separate standalone product, and your investment is $300 plus GST for a 12-month access to that product. And you can use it for as many of your clients as you like and charge them those fees. Or you could pay it in 12 monthly installments of $33 per month plus GST if you wished, but it's cheaper to make the upfront payment and get underway. And next week, we're going to have another package that we've done exactly the same thing. So as part of our contribution to try to give you tools that we think you can probably use straight away and earn income from and help an SME client out with an issue. So we're extracting those key products, which we're calling them the processes, out of our overall system so that they are available for you. So I'm now going to go to the connect to our website so that you can see how this process works. And we now have the members homepage of ESS BIZTOOLS. So this is all of our packages. Now, in our total product packages, we've got a fiscal forecasting, which is the top of the tree, advanced, starter, and advisory intro. The debtors management system is currently part of advisory intro. I'm going over here and under our list of subscribed content, I'm clicking on this debtors management. So if you were a subscriber, this is how you'd work around the system, because you'd have access limits to whatever level you're subscribed to. We have an overall video that I prepared. We're now going to download the content. And what we receive then is the debtors management documents obviously for debtors management. BAS refers to business advisory services. That's the terminology we had. We allocated that 25 years ago when we started this process. And I know the same terms used by the tax office for another purpose, but we've kept our BAS because we'd already got started. So what I want to just do is just click through. So there's a number of forms. We're going to look at some of those shortly. And there are some papers. There's some additional papers which we've added into this package as part of this special promotion. but I'm flicking through them because I'm going to a special one at the bottom, which is the paper 570034, which is on debtors management. And I'm just bringing that up. So this is the paper. So this is an ESS BIZTOOLS paper. Subscribers can delete our logo if they wish. And above this double line, they can insert their brand. Obviously, we've badged all this for our purposes for this demonstration. So this is a sample of a paper. It's basically saying, this is how we go about getting started. This is reading material for your team members that are going to be involved on this work with you. But also, you can hand this to clients as part of the onboarding process so they understand what you're referring to. It's linked to other material. We have a publication called Accountant's Minute that we produce each fortnight, and it's linked on matters concerning debtors to a range of articles in Accountant's Minute, as you can see there. And one of those links is talking about Paul Robson's article that I referred to a little bit earlier, that he wrote for the Financial Review. So that's the paper. I'm just going to move on, and we will go back to the main form now, and we'll just go back up to the till I can find the next one that I want. Debtors Management System. Is the introduction checklist that you would go through, or your team would go through, and mark down what the client's already got in their system and what they haven't got. It's part of your process. So you can be saying to the owner, your client, you've got some of this material, but there's other material you haven't got. And it's all linked. You can click onto that and go to the form. So that process will help be the foundation for an effective debtors management system for your client. And I'm just going to move on. I'm going on to the proposal for a debtors management evaluation. So this is a standard type letter that you might send to your client. You can write your own, of course, but when we first started preparing ESS BIZTOOLS, I used to have accountants all over Australia and New Zealand say to me, "Oh, what should we put in the engagement letter?" And I must admit, a number of people hadn't really used engagement letters at that stage because they was just dealing with taxation matters. I think it's very important, whatever you're doing, but very important for advisory services for you to clearly set out to your client what you're going to do. So here's a suggested engagement letter that you could utilize or edit to inform your client of what's going to happen, give them the quotation for undertaking this particular assignment. The next one I want to look at is the form which your team would use to go through and decide what's in the current system? What are the forms? Is there a director's guarantee form? Is there a welcome to new customer letter? Is there internal advice form to go to the sales department and perhaps others, maybe marketing? Is there a form for the personal property securities register? Is there a written system on debtors management? Is there a credit application forms, and so on? So that you're undertaking a full due diligence review of all aspects of the client's systems. We then have the debtors review questionnaire. This is to sit down with the client and perhaps their office manager to gain an appreciation of what's happening at present. So you would have done this process before you sent that engagement letter. I think you should know these things before you start the engagement process. My apology, I got that out of order a bit. But what bad debts have they been writing off? Now, you might know some of this, but it's a good idea to go back through it, because in your tax return processing, you might not have been told all the information. Does anyone contact the referees? Is the person authorising the opening of the account, do they check with mercantile agencies, Dun & Bradstreet? Are they making sure they're not getting someone else's problem? Are the director's guarantees? I've said this before because I've seen people come unstuck on this. They haven't put them into a long-term file. And you one business which destroyed them after 6 years because they just threw everything out thinking it was just part of their taxation data, which it wasn't, of course. And then there was a problem with that particular business. They couldn't activate the director's guarantees because they didn't hold them. So that's there. You can look at that form and work your way through it. Another important aspect to know is what is the debtors days outstanding, even when you're first taking on the process. And once this process gets underway, this is something that should be continually checked. So there's a form to assist with the calculation of the debtors days outstanding. What's the annual sales? What's the monthly sales going to be, or the daily sales? What's it calculated at? What's the target? What's the improvement to be made? And then underneath it, we have a sample of some debtors balances and what the annual sales might be, and based on debtors days outstanding, what could be the balances. Application to open an account, I think, is a very important document that your client should have, so that they make sure that all the answers are there, that the form's been completed, so they can go through it and they can see who has got to be followed up. You get more information about this particular applicant. Why should your client be taking on someone else's problem? So I'm sure that form will help. The welcome to new customer letter, I think, is very important, because this is an opportunity for your client to be putting down the welcome mat to a new customer, to indicating to them that they're very happy to have them, and including maybe some messages from the sales department or the CEO himself or herself, so that the new customer feels welcome. It's just not another account they've opened. They get the red carpet. But it's also the opportunity to confirm the terms of trade that have been negotiated, to confirm their credit limit. Very important. And also to enclose documentation required for the personal property securities registration, if your client's decided to do that for this particular client. So I believe that the documentation that I'm particularly referring to should be on every welcome to new customer letter. They fill it in. It's the retention of title agreement and the terms of trade agreement. They've agreed to these things so that your client's putting themselves in the best possible position to actually register. But they've got to do it within the time period, which is about 21 days. So they need to make sure the team in your client's business understand this and understand the need for some urgency in getting these applications completed. We have a customer purchase procedure file or form, and that's to enable the documentation of what the customer, for your client, has said that they want, so that they understand how things have been handled. So there's some processes there to make sure that information's been passed around the business, especially if someone's been put on no further sales until they pay their balance, but also to make sure that if the client has indicated that they must have things like a bill of lading or a weighbridge certificate or a health certificate or whatever else with a tax invoice, that is in fact delivered to the client, because they won't pay otherwise. And that is one of the real problems with managing debtors' days outstanding. And then we have the Debtors Management Strategy. It's going through and then breaking down this whole process into the various components and saying, when's this going to be done and by whom, and what's the follow-up review? So that within your system, you can make sure that everything you've told your client is actually attended to, and it's attended to within the time frame that you told your client. So that's the overview. I haven't showed you all the forms. There's others, debtor follow-up letters and that type of thing. But hopefully it gives you an idea of what the components of the Debtors Management System within ESS BIZTOOLS are. And this is what you would be acquiring at the ESS BIZTOOLS website, which I believe you can immediately start using with your clients. So we are just going to go back to the continuation of where we were. So one of the questions I'd now put to you is, how many clients with debtor systems do you have? How many of these clients would you expect to retain your services for a debtors management review? You can calculate your rate of return. You're the accountants. Are you ready to take action? Please go to our website if you're ready to subscribe, essbiztools.com.au, and click on packages and pricing, then pick the Debtors Management System. There'll be other systems there, and you can then complete the subscription order form. Now, if you need more information, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and I'll respond to your questions. Maybe we'll organise a complimentary Zoom meeting. We'll take you through this process in a bit more detail. Or you can telephone me on 0747241118. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar. I look forward to you joining ESS BIZTOOLS as a subscriber to take advantage of this special offer on the Debtors Management System to assist your clients during this BizAid process, to help them get services that they need to steady their businesses in these challenging times. Thanks very much. Goodbye. And as I said, if you have any queries, questions, please follow us up. Goodbye.